The growth of the Ugandan economy has slowed down, precisely between 3.5% to 4%. At least from the projections, economists say that we are not doing well. And with the increasing number of graduates that keep getting churned out of universities, precisely 400,000 every year with no jobs, yet we still have external pressure from the arrival of refugees every day. What can Uganda do to counter some of these measures, but most importantly, create jobs for its population? The number of refugees that are in Uganda right now will stand at 1.2 million. These probably are still competing for the same jobs as Ugandans. And to join me and just throw in a deeper perspective on this is Ms. Rosa Malango, who is the UNDP resident representative and also the UN resident coordinator. Welcome to Newsnight.
Thank you very much.
And also Professor Justin Lin, who is an economist from China. Good morning. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome. Professor, let me start with you. You've been here for about 3 days. You've been able to chat and interact with different stakeholders. What have you noticed about Uganda that is quite different from China?
Well, my first impression, certainly the country is quite poor. However, the people are very friendly. The society is very peaceful. The government is very committed. And the country has great potential.
Well, you talk about potential. You have been quoted saying in 1977 we're at the same level, but now things have changed. What has gone wrong from at least the studies that you have carried out?
Yeah, certainly that in 1978, China was poorer than Uganda.
Yeah.
But now China is a very dynamic, growing, high middle income country, likely to be a high income country by the time of 2025. And I think that if the policy is right, Uganda has the same potential.
Let me ask Ms. Rosa, you are now deeply engaged in making sure that the conversation on industrialization in Uganda is kept active. Why is the UN as a whole system deeply engaged in this for this country?
Thank you very much. I think that there's two key reasons why we are deeply engaged. First and foremost is because Uganda's National Development Plan and the National Vision are closely linked to sustainable development.
Okay.
And there's no way to achieve sustainable development without looking very carefully at what are the opportunities to accelerate that development. Where Uganda is right now, we see some opportunities in terms of industrialization. But we also see the need for Uganda to learn from other countries that have already advanced. So our role is a role of knowledge broker. Bring to Uganda people with a different experience so Uganda can reassess where it is and see what to do differently. The second point why we are involved is because there's a commitment to leave no one behind. If you want to have an inclusive development where you give opportunities for the youth, and Uganda has a very youthful population, where you empower the most vulnerable communities to deal with the challenges. You made reference to 1.2 million refugees in Uganda. Uganda today is the country in Africa with the largest number of refugees. But those refugees are also potential contributors to economic transformation. There are engineers, there are constructors, there are doctors and nurses. So how can we put that youth that's temporarily here in Uganda seeking safety to work to contribute to the development of Uganda wherever they are?
We are primarily an agricultural country. How do we harness those opportunities to make sure that we create more jobs for young people who do not want to be farmers anyway? They'd rather come to the city and get a bike and ride. How, for example, has China been able to transform that society from that, for lack of a better word, primitive to one of the most industrial powers in the world?
Certainly, the transformation from an agrarian economy to a modern industrialized economy is very important for job creation and for the country to grow dynamically. And certainly at this moment, the country has very poor infrastructure, and the business environment is not so attractive. But however, every country, when they are poor, their infrastructure must be poor. Their business environment must be, poor also. And so that's not a barrier. I think that to transform this kind of situation, on the one hand, we need to rely on private sectors, entrepreneurship, but at the same time, we also need to have the government to play the facilitation role, creating certain kind of enabling environment for the private sector to enter into the new industries, and those industries which are consistent with the country's competitive advantages and with the government help to improve infrastructure business environment, they can become competitive quickly. And by that, they can create jobs and generate the profit, accumulate capitals. Then they can continue to expand to other new sectors and to help industrial upgrading. That is the way to make a country from the poverty to prosperity.
Those are plans that we seem to be having. When you look at our national plan, those things seem good on paper. What practical steps can we do to get, our vision as a country is to get to middle income status pretty soon? And many people are fearing that we may not. It's a dream. What practical steps do we then start right now to get to that place?
I think that there's two things that are very important to state in our conversation. The first one is that every single country, including China, had a trajectory and had an evolution. And that evolution was not done in 2 days. So the important thing is, as they said, do we have the right policies? Do we have the right framework? Do we have the right disposition? So far, the answer is yes. Now, in terms of how do we accelerate the implementation and what is missing, there are a couple of things that have come out both from Professor Lin's visit, but also from Dr. Akabe that we had here from Ethiopia last month. Number one is scale. We had a very ambitious vision in Uganda of having 23 industrial parks. Lesson number one, we have to start small. They're asking us and encouraging us to do one or two very well, and then those will be able to help us to go forward.
You've been able to visit the number of industrial parks.
Exactly. So that already came back. Second thing is we were talking about youth and jobs, and it's true. You talk about agriculture, people don't want to go. Let's talk about agribusiness. Let's talk about value addition. Let's talk about technology and innovation. We have gold ore. There's new ways of doing it. Let's talk about protecting the environment and creating jobs by protecting the environment. So let's talk about matching the schools, vocational schools, and the universities with the industries that are coming on board. And most importantly, the lesson that we have learned, we need to aim higher. Until now, all our discussion was about the national market and the regional market. Number one lesson from Professor Lin, we need to aim for the global market if we want to get scale. So I think that now we're seeing the small adjustments that we need to make that will allow our policy to be able to transform into reality.
Right. Well, this conversation is certainly interesting. If you're at the World Bank Open Day today, you can see some of the innovations that young people